Hi, everyone. This is Ray Phillips of Precision Driving Analytics. And as I mentioned in my last video, I had the opportunity to drive a BMW Spec E30 at VIR. And it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. Wasn't used to the car. It's very different than what I've driven before. I do know VIR very well, so that wasn't an issue. But the spec BMW did not have a full-blown data system in it, which is what I'm used to. It did have an AIM Solo, and I got several GPS measures using that. And I just kind of want to share with you what I looked at without having a bunch of data channels. Because I've had people ask me, well, I don't have a full-blown data system. What do I look at? Well, I'm going to share that with you right now. So this is one of my earlier sessions that I have up right now. Not fast times, but I was getting consistent towards the end. And, if you don't have somebody else's data to compare to, and you just want to say, well, looking at my data, how can I go faster? Well, the first thing that I do is I look at split times. But before I can look at split times, I got to make sure that the map that I have is set up properly with fewer sections so that the split times mean something to me. So if I pull up a map here in RS2 analysis, let's just create a new one to show you what it would look like. All right, so this is VIR. I'm just going to rotate this using this slider here. So that's good enough. So you can see, it's got several different sections. Some of these are really small. It's basically trying to create a section for every corner with right-hand corners being in red and left-hand corners being in blue. I'm not quite sure why it didn't pick up this as a left-hand corner in blue. But the green is supposedly straights. So, this really isn't going to help me a whole lot when I'm looking at split time. So I'm going to cancel that because I've already made a map. And I'm going to go to Map Manager, and I'm going to choose the one that I want. We've got several different VIR maps. So I'm just going to choose this one right here. All right, load for open test. Okay. So now I have that map loaded, and I'm going to pull it up here. So you can see, I've got fewer sections and they're longer too. So this tells me that, hey, I've got corners leading to other corners, and I want to make sure that those combinations give me a good sector time. And, it just means something to me when I see these. So I'm going to pull up my split time report now. View split times. All right, so my best lap in this session was a 2:24.068. And by the way, these colors on this map correspond to the colors up here. So now I know what to look at. If I see a faster sector time, I can map that up to the track map, and I'll be good to go. All right, so best lap was a 2:24.068. Best rolling lap is a 2:23.948. Again, a best rolling lap is joining two consecutive laps at a different spot on the track other than the start-finish line. So in this case, you can see this is at the second blue sector, which is here. So it's joining lap 5 and lap 6 at this point. Okay, and my best theoretical lap was a 2:23.012. So since it's early on in the weekend, I know I can improve quite a bit. And when I see a pretty big gap between the best lap and the best theoretical lap, I know that there's something to be found in here. So sure enough, here's a spot where we're looking at Oak Tree. And on lap 7, I went through there 0.6 faster. So how did I do that? You know, what can I learn from that? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull up the two different laps. But first, I also created a user profile. And if you're not using user profiles, then you're not getting the most out of your data, because this is a very quick and easy way to see your data, so that you don't have to recreate charts every time. So all these user profiles here, they all are profiles that I use with a Ferrari Volanta Ferrari Challenge team that I support. But I did create this one called GPS measures. I'm going to double click on that. So that's brought up this measures chart, and I'm just going to explain what's on here. Whoops, I don't need this one. All right, so I'm going to expand this. All right, so the top line is speed, GPS speed. The yellow, light green line on this is GPS longitudinal Gs, so going up is braking. This is, the purple is G sum, or combined G, as I'm calling it here. And that's combining lateral and longitudinal Gs. And the red is lateral Gs, again, via GPS. And this line down here, I really like using this stuff. This is a math channel. It's called cumulative combined Gs. So basically, it's just adding up the combined Gs as the lap goes on. I'm using a lap integral function in order to create this. And I could do the same thing with lateral Gs, or even just longitudinal Gs. But it's a good measuring tool. So if I compare like a faster lap to this lap, then one thing I would look at is, all right, what's my cumulative combined Gs between the two laps? And that kind of, if it's higher, then that tells me, okay, yeah, I made up a lot of my time in corners and not like getting a draft down a straightaway, for instance, or just more power in the car or something like that. So anyway, this is what I pulled up. Again, I didn't have many choices as far as my measures are concerned. These are basically the ones that I had. All these other measures that are listed here are channels that I get from the ECU and the Ferrari Challenge car, or math channels that I've created using those channels. So anyway, let's go back to our split report. All right, and again, I'm going to expand this, and we're looking at Oak Tree, basically. So we're going to compare lap 6 to lap 7. And we're going to go back to our measures. All right, so now we have a time delta at the bottom here. And I'm going to create per lap colors so we can see which lap is which. All right, we got yellow and blue. I find that yellow and red, against the black background, is easier to look at. All right, and I'm going to pull up a track map. And again, we're looking right here, okay? So if we look at this section, this is basically the section that we're looking at. I'm going to minimize that. So we've got 0.64 seconds time difference between the two, the red being the fastest, yellow being the slower lap. Yellow was a 24.161, red was a 24.068. But if we look at the end of the section, now it's 0.02, so that's our 6/10. Okay. So how did I do that? Well, first thing I see, and I can zoom in on this, is that my speed was greater going into Oak Tree. So 8 miles an hour faster at that point. And you can see that's taking off big chunks of time. The other thing I can see, I'm going to get rid of the combined G's real quick so we can just look at the longitudinal. All right. So again, yellow is faster here. So if I look at my longitudinal G's, well, you can see I basically brake later, right? If I click on the little red triangle and click here and say here, well, that's, hopefully you can see it, that's 68 feet. All right, so I braked 68 feet later. I was actually easier on the brakes because you can see the longitudinal G's aren't building up as quickly. They did get to be higher, but by that time I was already carrying a lot of speed. So at the max point of longitudinal G's, you know, I was doing 76.7 versus 70.4. And that translated all the way through the corner. So I maintained that speed all the way around. Here it's 53.8 versus 49 and 44 versus 41. So carrying all the way, more speed all the way through, you know, really helped take the time off the clock. And just braking a little bit later, you can see how my lateral G's build up is a little bit different as well. I'm hitting more lateral G's than I was on the red lap. So everything, you know, looks better there as far as attacking the corner. The other thing I can look at, well, is the line that I took. So that's part of the user profile I created. It also pulls up a GPS map. So I can just click on this here and I can expand it. All right, so I could export this to Google Earth and overlay it. Sometimes that works really great, sometimes not. But at the very least, I can see, okay, the yellow lap was fastest. So I can see, yeah, I used more of the track. I opened up the radius by getting the car on the left-hand side of the road. I took a little bit tighter line, and I got the car rotated, and I used more road on the exit as well. So yeah, that line is slightly different. Truthfully, you know, a combination between these two could be even better. You know, I think staying on the left-hand side of the track is definitely a must, but you know, maybe I could have let the car track out a little bit more and rotated it, get the car a little bit wider here, and then also used road coming out. So nevertheless, this worked, and that's something good to know. So now I know I really need to use the track on the left-hand side, and I need to let the car track all the way out to get the maximum speed out of the corner. So that's definitely very valuable. And you know, basically, I go through that process every single session. I look at the split time report, and I can dig into this, like this 0.132 seconds here, which is going to be at this part of the track. I believe it's turn 14 at the top of the hill. And I can look at, you know, speed traces and that type of thing as well, and see, you know, what can I do differently. There's certain things I know about this track that I could pick up on with the speed traces too. One interesting thing here is that cumulative combined G's for the yellow lap was actually higher than for the red lap. and not big difference in there, but it shows that I was pushing the car a little bit higher. So going through this process throughout the weekend, I want to show you where I ended up. So I'm going to uncheck the 224 lap and go back and uncheck the per lap colors. Oh yeah, one other thing that comes up is the friction circle. So again, this is using GPS, and you know, it's friction circles using GPS data aren't the best. They really are much more valuable when you're using a good accelerometer. But the red circle here is at 1G, and the blue circle here is at 0.5 Gs. So it basically just shows how well I'm using the outer edges. It's another way of looking at GSUM. You know, I want as much space as I can get in these quadrants, and certainly this side doesn't really look very good. And I don't really like how, you know, this is curving down and coming around and that type of thing. So definitely not a great friction circle. So, but let's pull up my very last session, which was my second race. I'm going to go to test database and pull up this session. All right, so here's my laps from there. I got down to a 2:19.87. So, you know, over the weekend, I went from a 24 to a 2:19.8. Not too shabby. I was getting used to the car. I know I could even go faster. If I look at my split times from that session, so again, my best lap is a 2:19.8, best rolling lap is a 2:19.5, and best theoretical is a 2:18.9. So there's definitely still more room for improvement. But if I compare these two laps, and again, I'm going to do a per lap color, and I'm going to change the orange to yellow. All right, so, you know, where's the differences here? Well, I pull up a track map again. So here's a huge difference, and that's, you know, basically the end of the S's. So I was just being more aggressive, able to stay full throttle more, and just, you know, just drive the car harder is really what it boiled down to. I carry a lot more speed into turn 10 here, 102 versus 91 at that point. You know, just carrying a lot more speed into 14 and into 17 here. So you can see all this time is adding up, you know, from this point, or really from this point, which is turn 1, all the way to turn 3, really not much improvement there, because this is all flat. And from this point, which is turn 6, to that part of the S's, not a huge difference, but at the top of the S's, that's where it really made a difference. And you can see the time coming off. Obviously, I've made up a lot of time between 3 and 6 as well. So, you know, if you had somebody else's lap, then yeah, you can do all these comparisons too. But again, if you don't have that, then you got to look at your own data and figure out how you can go faster that way. So let's look at the friction circles real quick. Let's get rid of this. All right, so this is the friction circle from you know, the last session that I ran, the second race. And you can see this looks a lot more cleaned up. See how I'm using the outer edges more now. There's less dots in this quadrant. Still some extra dots in this quadrant, which I don't really like, but but overall, it's an improvement. And if I go back and look at my cumulative combined G's over the lap, well, you can't see a big difference in the lines, but 79.2 versus 77.6. So again, that's just a cumulative total, but it shows that, yeah, I am, or I was, using the grip of the car a lot more and driving the car harder. So, all right, let me get my video back. All right, so that's it. Go and check out my website, precisiondrivinganalytics.com. And please reach out if you have any questions. It's rphillips with 2 L's at drivinganalytics.com. And check out my offerings on my website. And good luck in your races.